I was 15 years old when my world broke. My name is Oluoma, and this is my true life story. Life was simple. I lived with my mother in a small village not far from the city. We had a tiny clay house with a rusty zinc roof, but it was home. Every morning, I woke up early, swept the dusty floor, and helped my mother fetch water from the well. Then I prepared for school, putting on my uniform, a white blouse and a blue skirt that had grown a little too small for me. School was my dream. I wanted to be a teacher one day, just like my favorite teacher, Mrs. Ineka, who always smiled and encouraged me to study hard. I loved to read stories, write poems, and dream of a future brighter than the dusty roads I walked every day. My mother was my world. She was strong and kind, working hard at the market, selling fresh vegetables and smoked fish. She had raised me alone since I was little, after my father died in a terrible accident on the highway. Sometimes, she looked tired and sad, but she never gave up. I admired her more than anyone. One sunny afternoon, everything changed. My mother came home holding hands with a man I had never seen before. His name was Chio. He was tall and broad, with a serious face and a deep voice. My mother said he wanted to marry her and help take care of us. At first, I was happy. I wanted my mother to be happy. Maybe with a new father, I would feel safer. Chijioke was polite to me in the beginning. He bought me sweets and promised to help me with my school fees. For a while, I smiled again. But soon, the smiles disappeared. Chijioke began watching me in ways that made my skin crawl. His eyes followed me when I walked, lingered too long on my body. Sometimes, he would stand too close and I felt trapped. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was just being friendly. Then one night, everything changed forever. I was lying on my tin mattress, trying to sleep, when I heard the door creak open. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. The shadow of Chijioke moved into my room, and before I could say anything, it was on top of me. That night, innocence left me. Tears ran down my face, but I was too scared to scream. I felt lost and alone, even though my mother was in the next room. After that night, nothing was ever the same again. I woke up the next morning feeling strange, like a heavy cloud was sitting on my chest. I wanted to tell someone, anyone, what had happened, but how could I? Who would believe me? My mother, she was just next door. Could she have heard? Could she have stopped it? The questions spun around my mind like a storm, but my lips were sealed tight. Days passed, but the fear did not leave me. Chijioke started coming into my room more often, sometimes when my mother was away at the market. Each time, my heart hammered faster and my body froze. I hated him, but I was too scared to fight back. Who was I to stop a grown man? And my mother, I was afraid to tell her. I thought she would blame me, or worse, she would do nothing. At school, I became quiet. The bright girl who used to smile and answer questions became a shadow. My friends asked if I was sick or upset, but I could only shake my head. The secret weighed on me like a stone. One afternoon, after school, I sat under the big mango tree near the market. I watched women selling their goods, chatting and laughing. I wished I could be like them, free and happy. My stomach felt strange, churning in a way I didn't understand. I had missed my period. Fear gripped me like never before. I was pregnant. How could this happen? I was just a girl, and yet the truth was undeniable. I tried to hide this under loose clothes, but soon the swelling became obvious. I stopped going to school because I was too afraid of what people would say. What would my mother think? What would the villagers say? But the worst was yet to come. One evening, I sat at the fire with my mother. I wanted to tell her, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I helped her cook and stared into the flames, pretending everything was normal. But my mother knew. She looked at me with tired eyes and said nothing. Days later, she sat me down. Her voice was quiet but full of pain. "Oluoma, what is happening to you?" she asked. I could not speak. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I felt like my whole world was crashing down. Then the silence was broken by a chorus of us from the corner of the room. Chijioke stood there, arms crossed, looking angry. "It is your fault," he said, pointing at me. "You tempted me. You are a bad girl." My mother said nothing. She looked away. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I was trapped in my own home. The days after that terrible conversation became a nightmare that swallowed me whole. At 15 years old, I was caught in a storm I didn't know how to survive. My body was changing, my belly was growing bigger, and with every movement, I felt the weight of shame and fear pressing down on me. I could no longer hide what was happening. But the hardest part was the silence at home. My mother, the woman who once held me close and wiped my tears, now avoided my eyes. When I tried to speak, she would change the subject or walk away. The woman who was supposed to protect me became distant, cold, like a wall I couldn't climb. One evening, I sat on the one wooden bench outside her house. The village was quiet, the sounds of crickets and distant dogs filling the air. I hugged my swollen belly, feeling a strange mix of fear and something else. Love? I didn't know. The sky was painted with stars, but none of their light reached my heart. The whispers began soon after. At the market, at the water well, women looked at me with pity and disgust. The children I used to play with now crossed the street to avoid me. My school friends stopped calling. Even my teachers looked at me differently, their eyes full of judgment. "See that girl? Pregnant before she's even a woman," they whispered. I wanted to scream, to run away, but I had nowhere to go. One day, my mother sat me down again. This time, her voice was low and trembling. "Oluoma," she said, "I don't know how to fix this. I thought marrying Chijioke would bring us peace, but now I see I was wrong." Tears filled her eyes. I reached out to touch her, but she pulled away. "Why, Mama?" I whispered. "Why didn't you protect me?" She looked away, unable to answer. The silence grew thicker. Then came the worst night. Chijioke came home drunk, stumbling and angry. He shouted and cursed, blaming everyone but himself. I was terrified. I knew what he would do when he was angry. He grabbed me roughly by the arm. "You think you can ruin my life? It's part. You belong to me." I tried to pull away, but it was too strong. The pain was sharp, but worse was the feeling of betrayal by the man, by my mother, by the world. That night, I cried myself to sleep, praying for a miracle. The next morning, I found an old woman in the village who was known for helping girls like me. Her name was Mama Ineka, and her eyes were kind but tired. "I can help you," she said softly, "but you must be brave." For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. Mama Ineka taught me how to care for myself and the baby inside of me. She gave me herbs to ease my pain and share stories of girls who survived worse than me. She told me, "Your tears are heavy, but your heart is stronger than you know." I clung to those words like a lifeline. Slowly, I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could find a way out of the darkness. But the road ahead was still long and full of pain. As the days turned into weeks, my belly grew rounder and heavier, a constant reminder of the secret I carried inside me. Every morning, I looked at my reflection in the cracked mirror by the door. I barely recognized the girl staring back, her eyes dark with sorrow, her smile faded, her spirit trembling. School had become a distant memory. I stopped going, afraid of the whispers and the crossed stairs. My books lay untouched on the shelf, gathering dust. The future I had dreamed of, the one where I stood tall in a classroom, teaching children, felt like a cruel joke. One afternoon, Mama Ineka came to visit. She brought a small bundle wrapped in bright clothes, a gift for the baby. "This is for the little one," she said, placing a soft cotton cloth in my hands. "You are not alone, Oluoma. Many have walked this path and survived. You will too." Our words warmed my heart, but the fear never left. How would my mother react when she saw me like this? How would the village see me? Would the baby be safe? At home, the silence between me and my mother grew heavier. She tried to avoid me, and when she spoke, her voice was cold and distant. One evening, unable to bear it any longer, I confronted her. Mama, please, I whispered, tears spilling down my cheeks. I need you. I'm scared. She looked at me, her eyes full of pain. Oh, Luoma, I don't know how to fix this. I am ashamed, but I love you. Our words were broken, like a fragile promise. Then came the day I failed the most, the day her secret could no longer be hidden. At the market, my mother stood among the neighbors, and whispers began. The girl who carries her stepfather's child, the words burned like fire in my ears. I wanted to disappear. That night, I lay awake, my hand resting on my belly, feeling the tiny kicks. A part of me loved this little life growing inside, even if it was born from pain. I prayed for strength, but strength felt so far. Days later, I heard footsteps outside my door. It was Chijioke. His face was dark with anger. You will not keep that child, he growled, and you will not tell a soul. Understood? I nodded, too afraid to speak. He turned and left, leaving me trembling. I realized then that the fight for my life and for my child was only just beginning. The days that followed were some of the hardest I ever faced. My mother's coldness felt like a heavy chain around my heart, and my stepfather's threats haunted every moment. I was trapped in a house filled with silence and fear. One afternoon, while I was sitting by the fire, my mother called me inside. Her eyes were swollen, and I could see the tears she tried to hide. "Oh, Luoma," she whispered, "we must talk." I nodded, my heart pounding. She sat down beside me, trembling. "I have been thinking," she said slowly. "Maybe we should tell the village. Maybe it is time for the truth to come out." I looked up, shocked. "Tell them? But what will they say? What will they do to us?" She took my hand. "I don't know, but I cannot keep living with this silence. I am sorry I didn't protect you." Tears fell from my eyes. For the first time in many months, I felt a flicker of hope. Together, we went to the village elder, a tall, wise man named Chief Okoro, who had always been kind to me. I told him everything about Chijioke, about the abuse, about the baby growing inside of me. He listened quietly, his face grave. When I finished, he said, "This is a heavy burden, Oluoma, but you are brave to speak the truth. We will make sure justice is done." The next days were filled with meetings and whispers. The village gathered, and Chijioke was called to answer. At first, he denied everything, shouting and cursing, but when faced with the truth and the evidence, his anger turned to silence. He was arrested and taken away. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. The man who had destroyed my childhood was gone, but so was the peace I had once known. Back at home, my mother held me tight and whispered, "I am so sorry, my daughter. I will never let anything hurt you again." I looked down at my swollen belly and knew that even though my world had shattered, there was still a chance for new beginnings. After Chijioke was taken away, life in the village didn't become easier, at least not the right way. The whispers didn't stop. If anything, they grew louder. Mama's husband ruined this girl. She brought shame to the family. How will she ever marry now? These were the words that followed me wherever I went. Even my mother, though she tried to stand by me, seemed burdened by the weight of what had happened. Her eyes held sadness I could not comfort. I stayed mostly inside the house, hiding from the judgmental eyes of the villagers. Every time I stepped out, I felt their gazes burning into me like fire. The baby inside me kicked often, a reminder that even in the darkest times, life could be beautiful. One morning, Mama Ineka visited again. She sat with me under the mango tree and said, "Oh, Luoma, the people talk, but you must remember who you are. You are a child of strength, and this child you carry is a blessing." Her words touched my heart. Slowly, I started to find courage to go back to school. The teachers, too, had mixed feelings, but a few, like Mrs. Ineka, welcomed me back kindly. Some classmates stayed away, but a few reached out their hands, offering friendship. I was determined not to let my story define me. At home, my mother began to open up again. She started cooking meals with me, helping me prepare for the baby's arrival, and telling stories about my father. One evening, she said, "We will get through this, Oluoma, together." I believed her. The baby grew inside me, and with each kick, I promised myself I would be strong. for both of us. Though the road ahead was still uncertain, I was ready to face it with courage. Mama Ineka continued to visit and encourage me. Your story is not over, Oluoma, she said one morning as she helped me with laundry. This child will not be your ending, it will be your beginning. One day, I gathered my old books, dusty, torn, forgotten. I sat under the mango tree with Chukwuemeka, my son, and then I started writing. At night, when my baby slept, I wrote down my story, every tears, every fear, every scream I once held in silence. I let it flow onto the pages. It became my therapy, my healing, my voice. When I finished the final page, I cried not from sadness, but from the release. I was no longer just a victim. I was a survivor, a mother, a writer, a girl who was broken but not destroyed. I returned to school a year later, holding my son in one arm and my books in the other. It wasn't easy. Some still stared, some still whispered, but I held my head high because I knew the truth. I had faced evil in my own home. I had been abandoned, betrayed, and blamed, but I did not give up, and I never will. If you are listening or hearing my story, know this: you are not alone. You are not what they did to you. And no matter how dark the night is, the sun will rise again. My name is Oluoma, and this is my story. The end. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Please do not forget to like this video. Tell me what you feel about the story in the comment section. I'll make sure to reply everyone. Please support this channel by subscribing. Thank you, and see you guys on my next story. Bye.